speakers will be here after the program to sign any more programs and so forth.
We're on this side or over here?
I was looking for one of my people on the program. I don't see him yet.
So was I.
I slipped.
Thank you very much.
I put medevac. I took the 101st December 1970. I took the whole Airborne Division. I rushed out of play two, stayed in play two. I took them into Cambodia in 1970. Shot down there at the little heart.
Here.
Yeah, that's me. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So far I got 2 minutes. I'm waiting. As soon as I get ahead.
Okay, it's about 7 minutes after 2, and I got to get going here. Would our employees, I guess y'all are still signing up for education credit, would you all move through there and get seated? We're going to get started. And everybody that wanted is not just going to stand, but would like to have a seat, please take a seat. There's plenty of chairs. You know, some more chairs up here, but you'll be more comfortable. You're sitting down, of course. I want to welcome you all to the Dallas VA Medical Center today for this special program. Alan Harper, the director, and I were talking about this program before, and this is the 10th program we've had in 25 months. So we're really excited. About every 2.5 months we've had one of these historical programs, and we're really excited to have them here at our facility, to be able to hear these personal stories from people that have served our country. And we've been focusing on World War II for the first few of these, because we figure we're going to make sure we hear all these stories before we start Vietnam, and a few more stories about Korean War and panels and so forth. But we're delighted to have all of you here. This program had its genesis by my being invited about 6 or 8 weeks ago to the Southwest premiere at the Majestic Theater of the HBO miniseries called Band of Brothers. And you know, we have our big poster back there, and if any of you take HBO or don't take HBO, you probably know they got this program starting this coming Sunday at 8 o'clock. It runs for 10 weeks in a row. I honestly had not signed up for HBO. I signed up for it just so I could watch this miniseries. You have time in most areas to sign up tomorrow. Hope this excites you enough to want to watch it on Sunday nights for the next 10 weeks. The first program is on at 8 o'clock for 2 hours this coming Sunday. The origination of this was the book by Stephen Ambrose, written in 1992. And we don't have any of those for sale here, by the way. But some people have bought copies. You can get them at Barnes & Noble, Borders, wherever. The music that you were hearing on the CD is the Band of Brothers miniseries CD, which I bought just last night. Have my own personal copy of it, but it's a very, very beautiful theme song. Our third speaker is not able to make it. His name is Denver Randleman. He's on the program, but he called me just yesterday because they had a program in New Orleans at the D-Day Museum, and they asked him to be there. So, but we have the original 2 people that I originally planned on having, and didn't really expect to even have Denver, but I was able to add Denver about a month ago, a couple weeks ago. And but these are my 2 original speakers who live in our area, and I'll introduce them as we go into the program. 3 years ago, I went on what I consider as an Army brat and as a West Point graduate and a Vietnam vet to be a pilgrimage, and that was a pilgrimage to the Normandy beaches. And it was very exciting for me, very wonderful. I don't think anyone that was anywhere able to remember movies in 1962 would not remember The Longest Day with all the stars that it had in it. And John Wayne played the character of a Colonel Vandevort of the 82nd Airborne, whom I had seen at my church in the 50s before the movie came out, before John Wayne made him famous. He was just a retired Army colonel that had commanded a battalion of the 82nd Airborne on D-Day. And he went to my church, and he was actually, it's a true story, because he was limping. I remember him limping in 55 or 56 when I first met him. I always wanted to go to San Mary Glay, which was famous in the movie, of course, and that's where red buttons, you know, hung from the church steeple and so forth. And I wanted to spend the night there, but I couldn't spend the night there because all the rooms in the inns were filled. Because I didn't get there about 8 o'clock at night, but I went around the church courtyard, and then I went over to ended up at a little town called Saint-Marie-du-Mont. and I had no idea what was there. I just knew it was close to the beach where I could go to Utah Beach and be there the next day. So I woke up the next morning, and I walked around the square. I found all these pictures of the 101st Airborne. And as it turns out, what a small world it is. The actual Sainte-Marie-du-Mont was the place that this company, Easy Company of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, that was their objective. So it was kind of fun to have had that little closure in history and an opportunity to be with them and talk to them, and to realize after I read the book Band of Brothers that that was their objective on D-Day, Sainte-Marie-du-Mont. And then I went on to Utah Beach, and last month, before I even knew about this program, I went to the Battle of the Bulge and Bastogne and toured that battlefield. A lot of people go to Europe and see all the great museums and all the art exhibits and a lot of other stuff, but I like to go on pilgrimages to battlefields and get a little feel for the history there. This is obviously a great time of history for us to have these two gentlemen with us today, and you can see by the size of the crowd that you all really turned them out. It took a little bit of work, you know, a little bit of marketing, a little bit of public relations, and a lot of work for us, but we're delighted for everyone to be here. I'd like to introduce our director, Mr. Alan Harper, for his welcome at this time.
Thank you, Alan. Alan is always concerned about our crowds, and I think you ought to be happy today, huh, buddy?
Number one.
Right. I want to thank Alan. As Alan indicated, we've had 10 of these, and this is without a doubt our largest crowd, and we're really delighted to have such a great turnout, not only from our employees but from our community. And you know, we're very blessed and humbled and honored every day in doing our jobs as serving our veterans, and it's really a great honor to have the heroes that we have with us today, and we look forward to hearing their stories, and we're just want to get right on with the program, and thank you all for being here, and I know you're going to get a lot out of this today. Alan, thank you.
Our invocation will be presented by Chaplain Weldon Estes, Professor of Religion at Dallas Baptist University. He served in Korea, as he tells me, right after the war. He has 36 parachute jumps to his credit, came back after the Korean War and helped reactivate the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. So he's another one of these people in the stream of the 101st Airborne, and we'd like you to present our invocation, Dr. Estes, from Dallas Baptist University.
One story, when they came back from the Persian Gulf, we went to Fort Campbell, and they asked where would General Schwarzkopf have been without the 101st, and General Schwarzkopf said, where would the 101st been without him? Well, let's pray. O Lord, how excellent is your name in all the earth. We bow to acknowledge that you're the great commander-in-chief of all the earth. We thank you for the privilege of being citizens of our great nation. We thank you for your blessings upon our armed forces, and pray that you'll continue to give wisdom and guidance to our government officials who make decisions concerning our security as a nation. We thank you for our military and the men like the members of the 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment who lived, who suffered, and even died that we might enjoy the liberties and the freedoms that are ours. We praise you for those champions of liberty, truth, and justice. As they were willing to sacrifice in war, may we be willing to sacrifice in peace to ensure a just and lasting peace. May our gratitude for your many blessings that have come to us from the past and our obligations to the future call upon each of us to consecrate ourselves to the task of being good citizens. We pray that you'll make us, your people, to walk in your way, that this nation may become in a deeper and greater way God's own country. In the name of the God of our fathers, who is still our God, we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Dr. Estes. The original gentleman that I had scheduled to lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance, a combat medic from Vietnam, 101st Airborne, is not here. Is Jess Johnson anywhere near coming up front here? Okay, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I will modify, and I will have two other gentlemen from the 101st Airborne from World War II. That'll be Jesse Garcia and Jesse Lackey. If you two will come up and lead the audience in the Pledge of Allegiance. Jesse. Both Jesse. Come on up here. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you got it. Come on, Jesse. He'll lead you up here. You two lead us in our Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, please rise, and you know, if you have a service organization cap, you do the hand salute. Otherwise, you know how the drill goes. Hand over your heart. Face this way, gentlemen. Right here. Here's our flag. Right here. Turn around, Jesse. There you go. There you go. Okay. Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Be seated, Jesse. We have two ladies with us today who have a very, very close connection to our speakers. We have Agnes Spina. Agnes, would you step up here, please? Agnes was married to Ralph Spina, one of our speakers, prior to his going off to World War II. Ola Mae Stokes is here. Step up here, Ola Mae, please. Ola Mae had one blind date with our speaker, J.B. Stokes, before he was deployed to overseas. He got back, as I understand it, I may stand corrected, on December 1st, and they were married 15 days later. So these are two examples of two greatest generation people whose marriages lasted a heck of a long time. They will stand with their spouses at the end of the program and take your greetings and so forth also. But at this time, we have the pleasure of having a gentleman make a little token presentation to the two of you. This gentleman is Major General Alexander R. Bolling, Jr. He was in the 82nd Airborne. He commanded the brigade of the 82nd that went to Vietnam, and he was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division over there, and they wanted him to put the patch of the 101st on. He says, these are 82nd people, folks, so he did not put the 101st patch on, but he's a retired Major General, very high-ranking Army officer and paratrooper, obviously, and a great history. He was captured in World War II in Germany and escaped, and an amazing story. So we have the privilege of his making a presentation to the two of you ladies. Thank you very much, Bud. Be seated, ladies. Thank you very much. Our two speakers today are J.B. Stokes, who was raised in Bridgeport, Texas. He worked in an ice plant before he went into World War II in the Army. And when he retired, he had been working in several city water departments. And we're going to get right into the story. I don't need to tell you a whole lot about him. Our gentleman on this side, JB's on this side, Ralph is on this side. Ralph Spina grew up in South Philly, and I think when you hear him talk, you'll probably detect a little South Philly accent. South Philadelphia. Is that how I should say it? South Philadelphia.
South Philly.
South Philly. That's what I said.
If Garnier was here, he'd shoot you.
Okay. And I bet he's a good shot, too, if he was in this company. He worked at state fairs as a consultant before and after the war, and he lives in Fort Worth, Tarrant County, and J.B. Stokes lives just north of Fort Worth in Azle, Texas. So I'm going to get started with our Q&A here for the regular panel program, and depending upon our time, perhaps we have some time for a Q&A afterwards. JB, I'm going to start with you. You were with the company starting at Camp McCall, as I recall. This unit, Easy Company of the Parachute Infantry Regiment, trained together, basic training at a place called Toccoa in Georgia, and then did their paratrooper training, and then went to Camp McCall, and then were deployed over. So that's kind of the background. If you get the book, you'll learn all of that. But I wanted to start with you, JB, and talk a little bit about Normandy, because you were on that jump, and then Ralph got into the unit a few days after the jump at Normandy. But I'd like you to kind of tell us a little bit about how you became a paratrooper, why you decided to become a paratrooper.
Okay, first I'd like to say, looking out across the crowd makes me think of a big old boy I knew about. It was in a church. They put him on a program, and he got up in front of the crowd, and he looked out across there, and he said, "I'm scared. I don't know why I'm scared. I can whoop anybody in the house." No, I was drafted when I was 20 years old. I was living in Bridgeport, and I was drafted and sent to Camp Roberts, California, to take basic training. When we were finishing up our basic training out there, like about a week, probably, being through with it, and first sergeant, I guess it was, came through the barracks and wanted to know if anybody wanted to sign up to go to paratroopers. Of course, we hoorah'd him and ran him out of there. And after he left, we got to call in one other chicken to sign that list. And there was 9 of us there, and we all 9 signed that list. And we wound up going to Fort Benning, Georgia, through the parachute training school. And out of the 9, there was 4 of us made it through the jump school down there. It's a pretty rugged jump school. The ones that's been through there know about that. And that's the way I got into the paratroopers, and I don't regret it. I've really never regretted it. Well, I'll take it back. There were a few days I could have regretted it, but overall, I don't regret it. I'm really proud of it, and I think it's a good thing.
Ralph, would you like to tell us your entry into the paratroopers, how it happened?
Yes, I took my training. I took my training over in England just before D-Day, so I didn't have the privilege of jumping in Normandy. But I did, after the jump, about 6 days, they sent the medics over to evacuate some of the wounded, and we went over there to bring them back to England. And I later joined, I was with E Company, assigned to E Company, but I later joined the E Company as a combat medic for the Holland jump. And from then on, I just stayed with E Company.
JB, you were on the jump at Normandy, and I'd like you to tell us a little bit about the anti-aircraft fire over the Cherbourg Peninsula and the tracer bullets and the jump itself, jumping into Normandy.
Okay, I know there's a bunch of men in here that's familiar with this, but for the ones that's not, the peninsula of Normandy sticks out, and we flew from England around to the back side of this peninsula and came across it to the front side. And our mission was to drop about a mile or 2 before we got into the beach on the front side. And our objective was to prevent the Germans from sending replacements to the front up on the beach. And when we came over the coast there, we run over the anti-aircraft guns, and they started firing at the planes and shooting them all to pieces. And a lot of them didn't even make it. Our company headquarters plane got shot up. We lost our company commander and first sergeant and everybody out of the company. And the show will show this, as what we have seen of it shows it real plain. And we were all, when the planes were broke formation and flying in every direction, and they scattered us all over the peninsula out there, and very few of us landed exactly where we were supposed to land. But the training we'd had, we knew that might happen. And when we hit the ground, we started bunching up with the other guys. The first guys that I met up with were from the 82nd Airborne. They're in San Maria Iglesia. And we formed little groups like that and start down the road, and the highest ranking officer in the group would take charge, and we'd take a bridge or a road intersection, whatever he thought we should take, and hold it. And that's the way the whole mission wound up. Everything was taken that we were supposed to take, but maybe not by the ones that were supposed to take it. Other people take everything they saw. And the mission turned out to be a success, but it looked like it could be a failure.
But JB, now you landed actually in the town, right?
Right. I landed.
Tell them about that. You landed in somebody's backyard.
I landed in the town of San Maria Iglesia, right close to the church. You probably saw pictures of this paratrooper that hung his chute on the church. I landed within 3 houses, I don't remember exactly, within 2 or 3 houses in the backyard of a house, 2 or 3 houses away from that church. And we grouped up, and like I said, we started moving out in groups. Kind of a funny thing. They issued each one of us one of those little clickers like kids play with. And that's the best thing that ever happened to us, because if you saw a man in the dark and you couldn't recognize him, you could click that little clicker, and if he clicked one back, you'd feel safe. If he didn't, you better get busy. We clicked a clicker at a guy wandering around in the weeds over there, and he said, don't shoot, I've lost my cricket. But, so even though things get serious, some things are funny.
JB, you'd lost your company commander, of course, that died in one of the planes that was shot by the anti-aircraft fire. And then this gentleman, Winters, who is really the star of the movie in many ways. And most of these characters are played by unknowns, I understand. Is that, Ralph? Is that accurate? Most of the stars?
They're actors.
Yeah, but they're not
professional actors.
Yeah, they're not big stars, though, today, but they'll be better known after this.
Yes, they will be.
Yeah, they will be. And Winters, of course, took over the company, I understand, when Meehan was killed. And he's the main character in the whole series.
In fact, the actor that played Winters was on TV this morning.
Oh, he was?
Shimmer.
Yeah.
His name is Shimmer.
Now, JB, when did you get back, kind of like constitute the company again, so that you all knew where the company headquarters was, and you all kind of were fighting all this time and fighting the Germans at the intersections and all?
The best I can remember, it was from 2 to 3 days before I really got hooked up with the company that I was, E Company. Of course, we were scattered all over everywhere, and we were all working, trying to find our companies. And at best I can remember, it seemed like it took 2 or 3 days before I really got back and lined up with our company.
And so, Ralph, you got kind of like with the company after coming back over. You came across. Were you parachuted in, or did you come by land?
Parachuted in.
Parachuted in also.
Yes.
What about 5 days after the landing?
No. I went in to evacuate the wounded.
Yeah.
6 days after the invasion.
And then you got back with the company
I got back
and
with
were
the company,
assigned
yes.
the company permanently. All right. So were you both with the company when they had the action at Carentan, which is
No.
one of your big objectives?
No.
You weren't there yet? JB, I think
was, yeah.
you were there at Carentan. You want to talk about that action?
Yeah, I was in the company when I went overseas with the 101st and the E Company, and I didn't miss a day combat time with the E Company. I consider myself real lucky, one of the most lucky people in the world. I could have been hurt a bunch of times and only got 1 or 2 slight machine gun bullet wounds across the arm, enough to get a Purple Heart, but I'm almost ashamed of it, really. But anyway,
You took Carentan.
Yeah,
You want to tell a little bit about Carentan?
we took Carrington, and it's hard for me to remember the exact details of that. But, well, for one thing, I spent about 50 some odd years trying to forget about everything, and I nearly did. And since this book come out, I've been trying real hard to remember things that was important, and some of them it's hard to remember. But I remember we took Carrington, and I think it was about 7 or 8 days after D-Day. I mean, Carrington was cleaned out, and we were in on it. And best I can remember, we the ones that took all of it.
One of the things that you'll see in the mini-series is that, like, I think either on D-Day or the next day afterwards, one of the major objectives for the 101st was to take out 4 big German guns which were just behind Utah Beach, and they were firing on Utah Beach, and they were holding up the invasion. So you will see a very exciting part in the series where this group of about 12 or so of Easy Company took those 4 guns, and what the film says is that this was such a tremendous little tactical operation that it's taught at West Point. If they taught it then, I forgot it. I don't know, Bud, whether you remember back when you were a professor there or director of admissions, but I don't remember that specific action. But it was it's supposedly taught at West Point as a classical infantry tactical operation, very exciting in the series, and this Lieutenant Winters was in charge of that. Well, you all, then you came back with the company, Ralph, and then you were there for a while, and then apparently you all were there about 3 weeks. Is that about right? A couple weeks after you came back with the company, and then you all went back to England to train some more for the Holland jump.
For the Holland jump.
Okay. And then you were both involved in the Holland jump. So you want to tell us a little bit about that, Ralph? I noticed that what you mentioned, it was not as much fire by any stretch of the imagination as what Normandy had been.
Not in our particular area, anyway. But it was a hard jump, of course, and we got plenty of flack, and but it was a little easier than the boys had it in Normandy.
And you all jumped at about how many feet above the ground at Holland?
Everybody jumps at a different. Some jumped at 600 feet. Some jumped at 350 feet. It's all according how that pilot came in and how fast he wanted to get the hell out of there. See, them Air Force guys, after they dropped us, they still had to go over flak and.
Tell us about the captured field hospital at Holland.
Oh yes, that was a 326er field hospital. That was the Germans captured that. That was on the end of the glider area. Some of the glider guys that were in Holland should know that area. And the Germans captured the hospital. Got the whole staff, doctors and all that was left was 2 dead paratroopers that they left on one of the on the cots, and that was at the edge of the glider area.
So we set the hospital up right after we landed, and they overran it.
Well, the field hospitals get up as fast as they can.
Right.
But before you get to the field hospital, you'll have to you go to the aid station first, and then there's the medics take care of you first. Our job, the combat medic, his job, as soon as that guy gets wounded, stop the blood, give him a shot of morphine, and go to the next guy, because the stretcher bearers will get him, and just tag him. That's all that we did.
Okay. Now tell me about how the Dutch treated you all, Ralph.
Well, they were the nicest.
Holland.
The Dutch were the nicest people in the world. I mean, they really appreciated us. The French were a little cold.
Telling it like it is, right?
But the Dutch really appreciated us coming in.
I'd like to add a little story to that.
There's
A couple of boys we know that their name is Potter, and they're real nice guys, and they always make all of these meetings, trying to get all the information they can, because their daddy has died since World War II, and they're real nice guys. Some of you people may know them. Anyway, one of the boys told me that he was in Eindhoven, Holland, and he was talking to a lady, and he was standing in front of her house talking to her. And they were talking about when we came through Eindhoven, how they met us and they greeted us. And she said, I stood out here with a piece of paper, and every time a guy would come by, I'd get him to sign my paper. And she said, I still have the paper in there. And he said, would you mind if I look at it? She run in the house and got the paper and come back out and showed him. And he looked, and there was his daddy's name. Right.
That's a true story.
Ralph, you were about to finish something up there. You want to come back about how the Dutch treated you and any anecdotes about that?
Now, we went back to Europe about 6 years ago just to visit, and we happened to be in a restaurant, several different restaurants, and we'd be sitting down eating, and the little children, even the little children, 4 and 5 years old, would come up to me and thank you for what you did. And I think that was the most, I'll never forget that. And the grown-ups, even if you were walking along the street, they'd thank you. And they were they were just courageous people.
Tell us about your treating some German prisoners, Ralph, please.
Well, I did treat, what the heck, he wasn't going to do anything anymore anyway. I might as well, we treated the German prisoners, and we treated them just as well as we did our boys. We didn't slight them a bit. We might have cussed at them a little, but but that was...
Speaking of that, Ralph, I believe you mentioned to me that you thought that the book and the miniseries was pretty accurate, but it didn't reflect all the what that you all really did. You just mentioned the cussing. It probably didn't reflect as much of that as maybe you all did as young soldiers.
You mean deliberating?
Or whatever. No, I'll get back. I think they get the picture. They get the picture. That's all right.
Well, you mean stealing weapons and stuff like that?
We'll get to that. We'll get to the stealing weapons part. Don't leave early. Don't leave early. You know how Larry King says, we'll be right back. Don't go away, you know, because you want to hear that story at the tail end here. Okay, when he got to Berchtesgaden. Okay, all right. So y'all finished that up as kind of a back and forth and so forth, and you know, it was Operation Market Garden, as I recall.
Yes.
And then you all, I think it's a very interesting story about coming back for supposedly rest to Mormelon, France, that you hear about, and you all were just there a couple of weeks. And JB, you want to tell us a little bit about just what was going on during those 2 weeks?
As I remember this, we left Holland and came back to Mormelon, and like you said, we were trying to get stretched out and rest a little bit. And within about 8 or 9 days, I don't remember, we heard a rumor at the mess hall one morning that we were going to move out. And we thought it was crazy because we didn't have any, we had all of our weapons turned in for cleaning and laundry turned in, and we didn't have anything. But sure enough, we got back to the barracks, so they had to holler and fall out by the side of the road. And we fell out by the side of the road, and the trucks was coming, and they sent a truck up the road with a bunch of clothes on it, and another truck with the weapons and ammunition, and they'd pitch guns over the side. Whatever you caught, that's what you carried up to Bastogne. And when we got into Bastogne,
let me get back to that. I don't want to get quite there yet, JB. I want you to tell anything you want to say, Ralph, about that 2 weeks, and people were on, they were going to Paris, and some of them weren't back yet. So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about your emotions that morning after breakfast when you heard about getting on the trucks and being deployed again. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, for a while I didn't believe it. I thought it was a fairy tale or something. And I was going to I was due to go to Paris and get 6-day leave also. But there were a lot of the boys were stranded there. Some of them made it back. Some of them came in a little later. But when they took us out to them trucks about 1:30 in the afternoon, and we really didn't leave until about 4, and it was cold. I mean bitter cold, and we weren't dressed accurately. We didn't have enough ammunition. We didn't have enough food. We didn't have enough just anything. I mean, we had our boots and a couple of pairs of stockings. We didn't have no heavy coats. I had some sweaters underneath, but it was just, and we had to sit in them trucks, and we finally left.
They moved you up to Bastogne then from Mormelon.
Yes.
Without appropriate clothing, and then just like you said, the weapons, they started throwing them off. You didn't have your weapons sighted, didn't have enough ammunition, but you had to move out toward Battle of the Bulge that had started by that time. So that's about December 16th, which was the day the battle started. And I know there's several Battle of the Bulge participants, in the audience.
Well, we got into Bastogne. Our particular bunch got into Bastogne. I think it was 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that. And we had to sleep in a haystack that day. And we didn't get no sleep because it was bitter cold. And the next morning, or one morning or 2 mornings later, we got our first taste of of combat, we went into the Jacques Woods, what they call the Jacques Woods. And that was one of the first bloody battles we got into, right, J.B.?
Right.
Well,
Right.
JB, I want you to tell the story about the people of our troops that were streaming back, that had been,
Yeah.
the lines had been broken, and tell about that story of those American troops you encountered in the retreat.
As we went in, as we went into Bastogne, as we started moving into the town, we were meeting part of the 82nd, part of the 28th Division, and I'm not sure who all was involved in it, but when the Germans made that big push, they run over what was unexpectedly happened right there on the front line, and the guys were disoriented. They didn't know where their company commander was. They didn't know where anything was, and they were giving us the weapons and ammunition that they had, and we took them. And that's the way we got a lot of the weapons and ammunition that we had. But they moved back, and we moved into Bastogne and set up a ring of resistance around the town. And that's the way we held that town, with that ring around it. And all the time that we held it. And each unit, in the front of each unit, was responsible for clearing out the area in front of their unit. And one day we'd push out to the right front and clean out the woods on that side. The next day we'd push out to the left front and clean out that side, come back to the main line of resistance for the night, and hold that main line so the Germans couldn't get into the town. And of course there's a whole lot of publicity come from the fact that General McAuliffe told the guys that they were sent in there by the German army, sent a man in there with a flag, and told him to surrender, and he said nuts. He wouldn't. That's all the reply he sent back to them was just nuts, and they didn't understand what it's all about. But they tried to annihilate us, and it didn't work. We're still here.
Let me. I talked to a. I think one of the most interesting anecdotes that I heard as I was talking to these gentlemen, and perhaps, Ralph, I know I have it on a quote from JB's, but maybe you can say what these people were saying to you all, and you had to keep moving forward as they were retreating. What were the kinds of things they were saying about the Germans?
Well, I'll never forget that. There's, go get them. They're just coaches. Go get them. I said, no, we're not. Why don't you guys turn around and help us? Go get them. I said, hell. Some of them guys had 3 bullets in their rifle.
Well, there was a specific quote, JB, that you said that I wrote down there. Do you remember the quote that they were telling you?
Said, don't go in there, they'll kill you. And that's the way they really thought it. They thought everybody that went in there would get shot and killed, because that's the way they found it up till then.
They were right to a certain extent, too.
They were right.
Well, there's a there's a very special time in the series when you will see this movement forward, and some of the other American troops are retreating because the lines had been broken. We were not very well fortified or very well defended up on the line, and I wasn't personally there, just reading history. Bud was up there, and several other people here were there and all. But we were not very well protected, and the lines broke pretty quick because they just came out with massive firepower. But it's very interesting to see the troops of this company and the 101st just moving forward.
The main thing about it, it was miserable cold there. And of course we couldn't get in the house. We'd have to stay outside in the foxholes. And it snowed, and it get cold, and then it get colder. And it was miserable cold all the time we were there. And we were not equipped for that kind of weather. We had to make do the best we could, and it worked. But
well, now Ralph has a couple of interesting stories about a couple of gentlemen that he served with. Why don't you tell us the Hinkle story first?
Oh, God. Really want?
Yeah, tell a Hinkle story.
As it is.
Huh?
As it is.
As it is, right.
No.
This part is off the record, but all right, tell it.
Well, this was, we were in Bastogne a few days, and we had an awful lot of casualties, an awful lot. And the area, our area, some of it was, there was dead Germans all around all the foxholes. In fact, they dug the foxholes, but we took their foxholes over. And they're pretty good at digging foxholes, some Germans. And there was 4 or 5 around my hole in particular, and I give them each a name. I get up in the morning and, good morning, Fritz. And, well, you wanted to know about the Hinkle, right?
Yeah.
We, like I say, we were running out of a lot of medical supplies. And my friend Babe Heffron, he's another South Philadelphia boy, him and Garnier. I told him, I says, Babe, I said, I got to get back to the aid station and get some supplies. So I said, you come with me. I says, take your submachine gun with it and a rifle for me. So we went to the aid station. I got my supplies. I'm going to cut it a little short. And they even fed us. In fact, they gave us something to eat. And we had to cross, going there, we had to cross this big empty piece of ground. And we walked right through it. Now coming back, we had to walk through the same ground. But meanwhile, in the hour we were going, or the hour and a half we spent at the aid station, the Germans came in and took that area over. And it was it was getting late at night, and they were all in the holes. And little to our knowledge, we didn't know that they were in. So we crossed the field same way, and Babe fell into a hole. And there happened to be a German in that hole. And he looked up and he says, Hinkle, das is you? And Babe says, Hinkle, your ass. And we took off. He says, let's get the heck out of here, Ralph. Run!
You have to know this guy, Babe, to really appreciate that.
Apparently that story is told over and over again at these reunions of these groups. Got to keep moving here. It always happens that way, guys.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, I remembered here that you had written down that I had written down that you'd actually had 3 gunshot wounds with 1 burst of fire, JB, and so you got your Purple Heart there. And I'm not sure where you got yours, Ralph. Was it at Bastogne? You got your Purple Heart?
Yes.
Okay. They're both the recipients of the Purple Heart at Bastogne. Tell me a little bit about kind of the you were kind of back and forth. One thing I will point out, I'm sorry to be discombobulated here, where this division, plus a combat command of the Tank Corps, as I understand it, held off approximately 10 German divisions. Now you talk about, why it was such a famous battle and a last-ditch stand, because this Bastogne is the center of about 6 or 7 different roads that go through there that lead all over that area. So what they did, the Germans couldn't believe it. They held out like they did, but they just stayed in the fight there just constantly. Tell us a little bit about the final drive and the Patton's tanks came in, and anything you want to say about the closing of the Battle of Bastogne.
As you said, that was a network of road intersections, and I think the railroad went through there too. And that's the reason the Germans really wanted that town. And their orders were to take the town. And as you said, there's parts of 10 divisions around the town trying to get in there. And what we had in there was the 101st Airborne Division and a few tanks that was left in that area. And we wound up being completely surrounded there. And I don't remember you remember how many days we were surrounded for a few days there.
3 weeks.
No, it wasn't that long.
Not long.
No.
Whatever.
Anyway, Patton's tanks finally broke through the ring and got in there to us. And we were so relieved when we saw them. We had a big picnic with them and all that. We thought we were going to get relieved and go back to the back. And when they went through town and started out on the other side, our orders were to follow right behind them and go with them and clean out the woods and stuff outside of town. And that's where we went for 2 or 3 days. We followed them out there. But we did finally get relieved and get to go back to our base camp.
Now, you have anything to add about the finishing up of the
Yes.
Battle of Bastogne?
I finished in Bastogne, and I got wounded the last day. I couldn't get wounded, while we were there 4 or 5 days. They had to wait till the last day. So I was back. I didn't go back with the outfit. I went to they evacuated me to the hospital, and I went all the way back to England. But I came back to the outfit. I was in about 6-7 weeks.
Tell me
I went
about,
back to the outfit.
now, as I recall, there was a
to
story
go
about the
down.
concentration camp that you witnessed.
Oh,
Would you like to tell us about that?
Well, I'll tell you, fellas, it was the most disastrous things anybody could witness. A lot of people don't believe that they were there, but we saw them. Now we were marching. This is one particular story. We were in Landsberg, Germany. That's where Hitler went to jail during his youth. And we were marching along a railroad track, and there was empty freight gondola cars, and you can smell a stench, a terrible stench. So the lieutenant told me, "Hey, Ralph," he says, "Spears, go up there and take a look at that. Climb up on that gondola car and take a look. See what's inside." I think he had a little inkling that it was full of dead people. So I did. I went over and I looked in and I threw up. And I says, "You're not." I went back and I says, "You're not going to believe it." And I told him. And these gondola, there must have been 60, 70 gondola cars. All dead DPs. We called them displaced persons. And all Jewish. All the Jewish people. Those gondola cars were full of dead Jews.
Well,
And that was one of the most, that sight there, I'll never forget. I'll never forget that.
After you all came back to Mormelan for a while, then you moved on into Germany, and then you moved down toward the Berchtesgaden and so forth, and that's the fourth part of the story. I mean, this company was involved in their history, the Normandy D-Day jump, the Holland jump, the Battle of Bastogne, and then into what's called Hitler's Eagle's Nest area. So that's what's so interesting about this story, and that's probably why Stephen Ambrose picked the story. Ralph Spina is actually in the footnotes of the book. J.B. would have been in, but about 10 years ago when Ambrose was interviewing all these folks at New Orleans or at some reunion they had, unfortunately J.B. became ill and he was not at the meeting, but J.B. would be in the notes. But as you can tell from the story, J.B. was with the company for every day of combat from the beginning through the end of the war. What I'd like you to tell me about J.B. at this point was toward the end of the war, when the prisoners began to be captured and give up, tell me about the young boys that were training to be SS troops.
Well, when we left Mormelan, we went back into the southern part of Germany, and I know we were in the town of Hagenau for a while, and I remember a reconnaissance patrol that I was on across the river there in Hagenau that we got into a real serious fight there. But anyway, we moved on out of there into Germany and to Austria, into Austria. And our mission up there was to gather up the German prisoners as they were giving up. And they were surrendering by fields full. We couldn't even count them. And we'd set up a machine gun on the corner of each field and just run them out in the field. That's all we could do at the time. But we was talking to people up there in the area, and the lake up there at Selmsee, Austria, on the backside of that lake, there was 2 or 3 hotel buildings over there, and I was talking to some boys that was there. They was teenage boys, and they told me the story of their life that I never did forget. They said that when they was 4 or 5 years old, the German government took them away from their home and put them in a school. and they kept them in this school and moved them along different stages through the school. And when they got 15, 16 years old, they put them with the Army to train them, military training. And then when they got all their military training, they were qualified SS troops. And the SS troops were the Germans' elite soldiers. But these boys, they couldn't believe what they had been taught all their life. And when we went in up there, these boys were telling us about it, and they said that we'd been taught that if Americans ever came in here, that they would take everything we had, we wouldn't have anything to eat, and just mistreat the people awful. And he said, we can't believe that when Americans came in here, they brought groceries and things with them and fed the civilian people. As they was moving in, they set up and fed civilian people. And that's what we, as kids, they said, that's what we can't understand, why we were taught that all of our life. And
despite the dedication, I think it's interesting as a footnote here, despite the dedication of the German Army and everything that they did and so forth, and especially the SS troops, those people were no match for people like Ralph from South Philly and JB from Bridgeport, Texas, as far as fighting them and beating them, and I think it's a great story. Okay, I promised you a story that I'm not going to leave off, and that is capturing some Germans and something about some money, Ralph.
Oh,
Oh.
that's another adventure.
Another adventure.
Well, anyway, it was Babe and I again. We went into this little town outside of, well, it was like a suburb outside of Birch's Garden. And, well, it was kind of dusk. And we just were looking around for loot. So anyway, we were going up a little grade there. It was right in town, and I says, Babe, let's take a look at this building. Let's see what's going on in there. So we went in the building, and there must have been a platoon, maybe a little over a platoon of Germans in there. And so we told them, Handy Hoke, hands over your head. So we told them, just go down the road, leave your weapons here, and just march down the road. We told them where to go. And I told Babe, I says, Babe, there's a box, a tin box up on that shelf. Let's take a look at it. And it was the payroll. It was the German payroll. So we took the payroll, and we were going to stay over that night anyway in this town. So the next morning was Sunday. So we're both Catholic, and we says, well, let's go to church. So we had the money, and we went to church, and after Mass, I says, Babe, what are we going to do with this money? Let's give it to the congregation. So we gave the money to all the parishioners, and they says thanks. They don't know that in a couple of days that was not going to be any good. But we did keep the large bills for ourselves. We weren't that stupid.
Ralph and JB, I could ask you some more questions, and we could tie together some loose ends, but I'll just say a couple things, and we have a couple of presentations for you. And as it often happens, I just don't have time for Q&A. Our employees typically have an hour to come and do this, and they have a lot of important things to do here, as you can imagine, at this place of healing. So I'll just kind of tie it together. After they captured Eagle's Nest there, which was this recreational area, and it's very interesting, toward the 9th or 10th 10th, maybe the 10th program in the series, when they describe all that. And there's some wonderful scenes toward the end where the war's over, and after all this horror and sacrifice and blood and turmoil and deaths and everything, these guys are still laughing, you know. I mean, to think what they went through and to be able to recover from the war, you know, and be able to come back to society and raise your kids and raise your families again and contribute is just a wonderful story. But the unit was mustered out, of course, and you know, this has been a very celebrated story, obviously, for this band of brothers, and it's representative of a lot of different things, of the war and a lot of experiences of other people. And this company has been focused on, but these men are humble men, and they're delighted that their story is being told and so forth, but they know that an awful lot of other people made major contributions also. At this point in time, before we close, we're not going to be able to have a Q&A. I would like you all to step up front, if you would, and come down off the podium, the dais, and Mr. Harper has a small presentation for you. You can just use my mic.
We understand that a lot of you paratroopers that jumped into Normandy didn't really know where you landed, and we have a couple of maps that shows where many of the Easy Company folks landed during the D-Day invasion. We thought that you all might enjoy having that as a little keepsake and as a little memento of our appreciation for you coming and sharing with us your experiences. And God bless you all, and we really appreciate what you've done for our country. Thank you.
Very much. Look familiar. Look familiar. Look familiar. Yeah.
Well, we're not finished with modest little gifts here. When you all came in, you were probably aware of some tremendous music, which is the tape of the CD for Band of Brothers that just came out last week. Ralph, here is your copy, and here is your copy, JB. I don't know if you all even have it yet. If you have it, give it to some family member. Do you have it yet? Okay, good. We can maybe listen to it on the way home. Beautiful music. In fact, as soon as we close the program, we're going to start this 9-minute section, which is number 3 on the tape. It's just absolutely beautiful music. I mean, it just fits in and ties in just so beautifully with everything. Before we close, I do want to recognize any other men of the 101st Airborne that served and jumped at Normandy or at the Battle of Bastogne. I know Jesse is here, Jesse Garcia, Jesse Lackey. Would you please stand? They were in the 101st also. And yourself, sir. Any other men that were with the 101st Airborne in World War II? Okay. Any other men that are World War II veterans? I want all World War II veterans to stand up, please, and be recognized. All World War II veterans. Stay. I want the World War II vets to stay standing, and can you get a shot of all of them, please? All right. All World War II vets in the audience. Thank you. They will stay here when I finally... You can be seated, please. They will stay here, and I want their wives to come up and stand next to them if you want to get any more autographs done or anything like that, or just come and say hello and greet them. The book and the title of the miniseries comes from something that William Shakespeare stated from Henry V, Act 4, Scene 3. And it states there, "We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. For he today that sheds his blood with me shall be my brother." This company took 150% casualties, and I know there's other companies that took casualties like that. There's a special thing here that Ralph owns that you might want to take a look at, but it says, "The eagle will always scream for our fallen brothers. May the world never forget." Members of E Company, their company in the 101st Airborne that were KIA during World War II. All the names are here as a special tribute and a memorial that he has as his own, in his own possession, of course. I think that what I would like to close is a little lesson related to what I saw was years ago, you know, you heard this term, keep on trucking. Well, I never especially knew what keep on trucking meant, but I tell you, when you see the miniseries and you see that time when these men are moving forward, I get real emotional at some time in all these programs. This is the time for Alan, okay? But they were trucking forward. And these people are streaming back, and they're saying, don't go up there, they'll kill you. And the men of Easy Company kept going. They just kept on trucking. They just trucked up to the front. And I think it's a lesson for all of us, no matter how much we're hurting, how much we're dissatisfied, how much we're unhappy, how much we're sick, and we're here at a place of healing. For us as employees or patients or volunteers, no matter how bad it gets, just remember when you see that in the mini-series or hearing it, just keep on trucking and don't stop. Just keep moving toward the front. Thank you very much.